Amber and Ryan were living what many would consider a dream life. They didn't have extravagant material wealth, but they were rich in something far more valuable: love and togetherness. The small home they built was filled with laughter and moments of happiness shared with their two children, Mia and Lucas. Mia, at 7 years old, was a ray of sunshine in the form of a child. With golden hair that seemed to capture the light of the day and a smile that could melt any heart, she was known for her boundless imagination. Her days were filled with made-up stories, play, and infectious laughter. Wherever she went, she left a trail of joy. Lucas, though 3 years younger, was the loyal protector of his older sister. His caring and protective nature made everyone in the family see him as a small giant, just 4 years old. He followed Mia everywhere, mimicking her adventures and making sure she was always accompanied. Together they were like two inseparable halves of the same heart. Amber and Ryan looked at their children and felt they had everything they could wish for. Their nights were filled with stories told by soft light, with Mia and Lucas snuggled in a blanket, and mornings started with impromptu play in the kitchen while Amber made coffee. For them, simply being together was already a daily celebration. But like a blue sky suddenly covered with dark clouds, the happiness of this family was about to be tested. They didn't know it, but something unexpected was about to shake the world they had built to its core. And none of them would ever be the same again. It was a morning like any other. The sun was shining through the curtains, announcing the start of another day. But on this day something was different. Mia, who always woke up before everyone else and ran into the living room with her contagious energy, stayed lying down. Her eyes seemed tired, her skin was pale, and when Amber touched her forehead, she felt the heat of a fever. "Mia, what's wrong, honey?" Amber asked, trying to hide her worry. "I don't know, Mom. I'm tired," the girl replied in a weak voice, something unusual for someone who was always so lively. Amber knew something was wrong. She tried to convince Mia to eat, but she refused. Mia didn't want to play or listen to stories. Unease took over Amber and she decided to act. She picked Mia up while Ryan took care of Lucas and rushed her to the nearest hospital. The cold hallways and the smell of alcohol seemed to stretch on endlessly as Amber waited for the test results. The doctor entered the room with a grave expression, and his words changed everything. "Your daughter has a rare disease that affects the immune system. Her body can't fight infections like it should." Amber felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. Questions flooded her mind. Will she be okay? How long will this last? Is there a cure? The doctor didn't offer false hope. He explained that the treatment would be long, there would be tough days, and everything depended on how Mia would respond to the intensive therapies. Amber went back home devastated but determined. She told Ryan, and together they promised to do whatever it took to save Mia. The couple faced long hours at the hospital, days of doctor's appointments and sleepless nights, always searching for answers, always holding on to their faith. Meanwhile, Lucas felt the absence of his sister like an invisible wound. He asked every day, "Mom, when will Mia come back? Can I go play with her?" Amber held back tears as she explained once again that his sister was very sick and needed rest to get better. The house that was once so full of laughter now seemed eerily quiet. Each passing day Mia grew weaker and Amber and Ryan wondered how much longer they could endure. What seemed like just another ordinary day had turned into the beginning of a storm that would change their lives forever. Time seemed to lose its rhythm. The weeks stretched into months, and each day brought new challenges for Amber and Ryan. Mia's smile, which used to light up the house, now seemed like a distant reflection. The girl, once so full of life, was pale, weakened, like a flower slowly wilting. The doctors, despite all their efforts, didn't have good news. "We're doing everything we can," they said. But Amber could see in their expressions that the situation was getting worse. With every consultation, every test, the uncertainty became a heavier shadow. Amber spent every night by Mia's side in the hospital, holding her small hand as if that could protect her from all the suffering. She sang softly, told stories that Mia could barely hear, and sometimes simply stayed silent, feeling the crushing weight of helplessness. Meanwhile, Ryan tried to keep the house running, take care of Lucas, and above all hide his own pain. He knew Amber needed him to stay strong even though inside he was falling apart. Lucas, with his childlike innocence, noticed that something was wrong, but he couldn't quite understand what. For him, his sister's absence was like a void he didn't know how to fill. "Why isn't Mia coming back, Mom? Can I visit her today?" The question repeated every day, always with the same hope in his eyes. Amber, always so careful to protect her children from the harshness of reality, finally gave in. She feared this could be Lucas's last request, the last chance for Mia to see her brother. With a heavy heart and trembling hands, Amber said, "Yes, my love, you can see your sister. But you have to be very gentle with her. She's very tired." Lucas didn't know what to expect, but he was excited to see Mia again. Amber, on the other hand, felt the weight of a possible farewell. Despair surrounded them on all sides, but even in that dark moment, a small spark of hope shone. Lucas's pure love for his sister. Maybe, in some way, that could make a difference. The hospital room was silent, interrupted only by the rhythmic sound of the machines monitoring Mia. Amber and Ryan stood by the bed, their faces marked by exhaustion and concern. When Lucas entered, holding a crumpled piece of paper in his little hands, the atmosphere seemed to change for a moment. He walked slowly to the bed, his eyes fixed on his sister. On the drawing he was carrying, he had depicted the two of them together, running in the park like they used to. There were bright colors, imperfect doodles, but also something bigger. Hope. As he got closer, Lucas stopped. He looked at Mia, so small and fragile, her skin pale and her eyes almost always closed. "Hi, Mia," he said softly, his voice trembling. When he noticed she didn't respond, tears started to fall down his face. But even with his heart aching, he didn't pull away. Without asking permission, Lucas climbed carefully onto the bed. His little arms wrapped around Mia, and he hugged her with all the strength he could muster. It was a pure, genuine hug, filled with the most innocent love. Resting his head against hers, he whispered, "I love you, Mia. You're going to get better, I promise." Amber and Ryan watched in silence, trying to hold back their tears. But in that moment something happened. Mia's face, once so drained, seemed to relax. Her breathing grew calmer, and for the first time in weeks, a small smile appeared on her lips. Amber put her hand over her mouth, hardly believing what she was seeing. Ryan took a step forward, as if wanting to confirm that this was real. Mia's eyes, which had barely opened before, seemed to shine for a moment, as if that connection had reignited something inside her. Lucas stayed there, holding his sister, unaware of the impact of his gesture. To him it was just love. A love so big that it didn't need words, just a touch. But for Amber and Ryan, that hug was more than just a simple gesture. It was like a beam of light cutting through the darkness, proof that even in the hardest moments, love could still work miracles. What seemed impossible started to happen. After Lucas's hug, the doctors noticed something different in Mia. Her vital signs were more stable, and she seemed to be responding better to the treatments. It was slow progress, but real progress. They were intrigued. "Science doesn't explain everything," one of the doctors said. "But we know that love and connection have a real impact on recovery. Maybe this is what Mia needed." These words sparked something in Amber and Ryan. They decided to turn the atmosphere of struggle and despair into something lighter and full of love. Amber started bringing Mia's favorite things to the hospital. The teddy bear she always hugged at night, the blanket with its homey smell, and even the storybooks that had once been part of her bedtime routine. Ryan, despite his exhausting work schedule, dedicated as much time as possible to be by his daughter's side, helping her feel that even in that hospital room she was still surrounded by her family. But no one was more present than Lucas. He insisted on visiting Mia almost every day, always with a new drawing in hand. Sometimes he drew the two of them playing together. Other times he created scenes of imaginary adventures where Mia was the hero. He told funny stories and made sure to hug her when he arrived and when he left. "Don't forget, Mia, I love you," he would say with the same conviction as always. Day after day, something incredible happened. Mia started to respond. First, she began to open her eyes for longer periods of time, then she smiled faintly when she heard Lucas's voice. Soon she started asking to hold her brother's drawings and even whispered words, soft but full of life. "You're my hero, Lucas," she said during one of these visits, her voice weak but full of emotion. For Amber and Ryan, it was like seeing a miracle right before their eyes. What had seemed like the beginning of a farewell now turned into a journey of overcoming. The flame Lucas had lit in Mia's heart kept growing, giving her the strength to fight against something that until then seemed unbeatable. The doctors, even without a concrete explanation, began planning a new stage of care, now with renewed hope. And the family, united like never before, realized that sometimes, what seems small to the world can mean everything to those who matter most. Lucas's love wasn't just saving Mia. It was also bringing the family closer together in their battle for life. The months of struggle finally gave way to a day that Amber and Ryan would never forget. The day Mia was discharged. The sound of the doctor's words echoed like a long-awaited relief. "She's out of danger," he said with a smile. Mia, still a bit fragile, looked at her parents with bright eyes, and Amber couldn't hold back the tears. Ryan squeezed his wife's hand tightly, and in that moment, it felt like the weight of a mountain had been lifted off their shoulders. When they got home, it was as if everything had come back to life. The silence that once filled the house gave way to laughter and sounds of play. Lucas, who had been eagerly waiting for his sister, ran to her as soon as they stepped through the door. He held Mia's hand and said, "Now you're back, we can play every day like before." Mia smiled, still with visible fragility in her movements, but with the same spark she had before. "Yes, Lucas, every day," she replied. The house, once marked by pain and uncertainty, had become a place full of joy again. Mia and Lucas spent hours together in the backyard, creating new adventures. For them, the time of pain felt like something distant, almost like a bad dream that was left behind. But for Amber and Ryan, every laugh and every hug between the siblings was a reminder of how much they had overcome together. The parents knew it wasn't just the treatments that saved Mia. It was the love, the hope, and the unity that never wavered, even in the hardest moments. "I don't know what would have happened without Lucas," Amber said, moved as she watched the two playing through the window. Ryan agreed, saying, "He didn't just save Mia. He gave us the strength to keep going." In that home where life had been so cruel, it seemed like justice had finally been served. Life, which had almost been ripped away from them, had given them a second chance, as if it had heard every prayer and felt every tear. Mia, now with more energy every day, hugged Lucas whenever she could. To her, he was more than a brother, he was a true hero. And for Lucas, saving his sister wasn't some grand accomplishment. "I just did what any brother would do," he would say, unaware that with his small gesture he had changed everything. Unconditional love had won, bringing not only healing for Mia but also a renewal of hope for the whole family. Time passed, but the marks of the battle the family faced remained as reminders of perseverance and love. Mia, now healthy and full of energy, had become the vibrant girl everyone knew again. Her days were once again filled with play, laughter, and the imagination that never left her, even in the hardest times. Lucas, always by her side, was seen as the little hero of the family. To him, what he did was simple: love his sister with all the strength he had. But for Amber and Ryan, that hug changed everything. "He was our light when everything seemed dark," Amber would say with pride, reliving every moment she saw her children fighting together in a way that even the strongest adults couldn't have imagined. Back to their routine, the family was no longer the same. They had learned to value the little moments even more. The laughter at the breakfast table, the play in the backyard, and the spontaneous hugs that now never seemed to be missing. For them, every day was a celebration of life, a reminder that love can face even the fiercest storms. Amber and Ryan felt immense gratitude for the second chance they had been given. They knew it wasn't just the medicine or treatments that saved Mia, but the invisible strength that kept them united, the unconditional love that binds a family together. Lucas's hug, so simple and pure, became the symbol of everything that truly matters. Not only did it give Mia a new chance, but it also reminded everyone that even in the face of the greatest adversities, there is something that can never be broken: the bonds of love and truth that connect those who matter most. Today, as the family watches the sun set in the backyard with Mia and Lucas running and playing together, Amber smiles and says to Ryan, "We made it, together." And he, his eyes fixed on the kids, replies, "Yes, because we never stopped believing,